Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Tax in 10 with me, Rachel de Souza, and Andrew Robbins. We are both tax partners in RSM's London office and have a wealth of experience in dealing with a wide range of private client matters. Your feedback is valuable to us, so do keep it coming, especially if you have thoughts on any topics you would like us to cover. You can contact us by email. Now, Andrew, I came across a really interesting article the other day, which got me thinking about tax policy in general. James Coney wrote a comment article in the Times which broadly suggested that as the NHS is creaking at the seams, we should be doing something to encourage people not to use the NHS. And his solution was to give tax relief on private medical fees. And in this way, that would encourage those who can afford it to make use of private facilities.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that you think it's a good idea to give tax breaks to the rich in order supposedly to help the poor.
Right, I can see why you would say that, but I do think we should explore this idea in more detail. Now, there has already been a proliferation of private GP services where for a relatively low fee, you can have access to an online GP, or if you pay a bit more, you can actually have a face-to-face consultation. So if I am willing to pay to see a private GP, of course, that means I'm not taking an appointment with my NHS GP, that's assuming you can get one, and that frees up a slot for somebody else. I win because my mind is put at rest and I can get on with my life. You could look at it another way. So let's say my condition is not life-threatening, but maybe lifestyle limiting. For example, my hip's gone and I need a replacement hip. The availability of tax relief on the cost of the private care may just tip me over into paying for it privately. So again, I have freed up scarce NHS resources for another person, and it has cost the government less in tax relief than it would have done to actually treat me. So what's there not to like?
Yeah, that's all fine, but what I'm hearing is still a reduction in tax revenues, which means less money for public services. So explain to me how this is actually going to be a good thing. I mean, it may be cheaper for the government to give tax relief than to actually do the operation, but that's not what you're proposing, really. The operation would still be done. It's just that we as a nation are now getting two operations, one on the NHS and one privately, so that the waiting list falls.
That's right. And as Liz Truss has recently said, the discussion shouldn't all be about progressive tax policies. And this is a policy that isn't designed to raise tax. It's designed to encourage a particular type of behaviour.
Yeah, and I can see the logic of that. I mean, thinking about our hip operation, I guess we've got a choice of outcomes here, that either we just do one operation, but it's now private, so that saves the NHS money, or we do two operations, one private, one NHS, and let's say that costs the government 1.5 times the rate of two NHS operations. So I get that either of those outcomes may actually be appealing. And if your focus is on reducing waiting lists, having two operations clearly helps. The trouble is, I just can't get past the concern that everything has to be paid for. It may be good value to pay 1.5 times the cost and get two operations, but you still have to fund an extra 50% from somewhere in order to pay for it. So it seems to me that providing tax breaks reduces the tax take, which has an impact on overall public services. Now, you may say that's a price worth paying, but I think that we have to face up to the question of where the money comes from.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. However, tax doesn't need to be a blunt tool. We can make the policy, much more sophisticated. So, for example, sunset clauses are popular in the US, but rarely used here. And this is simply a mechanism whereby a policy is introduced for a limited time and then automatically falls away. And in this way, the financial cost to the government would actually be limited. So in our context, a time-limited tax break could be introduced purely to assist the NHS in getting back on its feet post-pandemic.
Yeah, and of course that approach would probably also benefit from the car insurance model.
Come on, you have to explain what you're thinking here. I'm not following you.
Well, lots of people sign up with an insurer because you get a good deal up front. And then once the direct debit is set up, they never bother to look at it again. And historically, insurance companies have done very well by offering worse terms to existing customers. So this could be a bit like that. And the idea is that once you're used to having your private medical insurance, even after the tax break is gone, you carry on paying for it.
Oh, so you're coming round to the thought that this could actually be a really good policy.
I will admit that I can see some benefits, but I still worry about how you're going to pay for it in the period when the tax break applies. Did you find the magic money tree?
No, but I do think governments have choices to make, and this is an idea that is worthy of consideration.
So maybe I should raise it the next time I bump into Liz Truss then.
Goodness gracious, I didn't know you were a card-carrying member of the Conservative Party.
Maybe not.
Okay, look, given everything going on, do you have something uplifting to recommend to us?
I do. This week I want to combine some of my favourite things: history and mythology, sarcasm, and YouTube. Overly Sarcastic Productions is a YouTube channel that produces these beautifully made summaries of myths, literature, and history. They're funny, they look great, and they're really intelligently done. If you ever followed up on my Natalie Haynes recommendation and like her style of retelling history, you would love this approach as well. So really look up Overly Sarcastic Productions and you'll really enjoy it.
I think it's something my teenage daughter would enjoy by the sounds of it. Anyway, thank you all for listening. As always, please let us have your comments and feedback, and we can be contacted on rachel.d'Souza@rsmuk.com or andrew.robbins@rsmuk.com. Until next time.
Bye.